Good evening. We're going to call the San Bruno City Council regular meeting of February the 13th, 2024. Going to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Here.
Councilmember Marty Medina.
Here.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Here.
Mayor Rico Medina.
Here. At this time, item number 3, Pledge of Allegiance. For those that can rise, if you'd rise with me and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. What I'm going to do for the convenience of the officer and his family, I'm going to go to announcements and presentations. There is only one, and I'm going to do that, and then we'll go right to public comment. Just so I read into this, and I'll turn it over to the chief, and we'll have a script and then public comment. And at this time, under announcements, proclamation honoring a Distinguished Service Medal Award recipient to an officer of the San Bruno Police Department, which Chief Johansson will give us a background.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I am Ryan Johansson, your Chief of Police, and I'm very proud to be in front of you this evening presenting Officer Kendrick Liu with our Award of Distinguished Service. This is a special award in the San Bruno Police Department. We have a number of recognition levels for all kinds of good work that gets done on a day-to-day basis, but only really exemplary behavior rises to the level where we actually issue these medals. That may not seem the case because it wasn't long ago that you were issuing a proclamation to recognize a number of other San Bruno police officers for an act of heroism. But as the job is, it is unpredictable, and as opportunity presents itself and officers rise to the occasion, we appreciate this opportunity to recognize them. Kendrick, would you mind standing up with me? So the reason that we're recognizing Officer Kendrick Liu tonight is that on October 28, 2023, he responded to the report of a stabbing on the 400 block of San Mateo Avenue. And when Officer Liu arrived, he immediately located our primary victim. This victim was lying on the sidewalk, bleeding profusely from dozens of stab wounds to the chest, stomach, abdomen, back, quite literally all over the place. This gentleman was not long for this world were it not for the heroic and immediate actions of Officer Liu. Officer Liu, while all police officers undergo a great deal of first aid training, had taken it upon himself prior to this date to engage in additional training in tactical medical techniques. And as such, he had appropriate training and equipment on him that day to respond very swiftly. In fact, over the next several moments after arriving, he applied almost a dozen sucking chest wound seals to wounds that were potentially fatal in our victim. As a direct result of this, the victim was able to sustain life long enough to be transported to a local trauma center and survived from all of those wounds. The attending physician at the trauma center made it abundantly clear that if it were not for these life-saving measures by Officer Liu, specifically the seals, that there's no doubt that the victim would likely have succumbed to his injuries. Officer Liu's actions in this case clearly directly resulted in the saving of a life. And that's the immediate criteria for the award of a Distinguished Service Medal from the San Bruno Police Department. And so this evening, it is my great honor and pleasure to recognize Officer Liu by awarding him with that medal. Kendrick, great work. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for going above and beyond. This is one of probably many people in your career who will be on this planet because of what you chose to do for a living. So thank you very much.
And then with that, sir, officer, our chief, your chief, our chief, basically alluded to what you did and how it made a difference by your actions. I have a proclamation here recognizing you for what you have just been awarded and for the service that you give to this community in San Bruno PD. Whereas Officer Liu was among the first officers to arrive at the scene, and whereas upon his arrival, Officer Liu located a victim who was suffering from dozens of stab wounds, and whereas Officer Liu had previously taken on his own initiative to put himself through the complex tactical medical training well beyond that required of his current position, and whereas Officer Liu remained extremely calm in a chaotic scene and immediately began life-saving measures on the victim. And whereas Officer Liu applied at least 8 chest seals to potentially fatal stab wounds that the victim was suffering from, and whereas doctors later indicated that without Officer Liu's swift action, the victim in this case would almost certainly have died from his injuries. And whereas the Chief of Police is awarding Officer Liu with the San Bruno Police Department's Distinguished Service Medal for his heroic actions. Now, therefore, I, Rico E. Medina, Mayor of the City of San Bruno, hereby recognize this act of heroism and receipt of the medal through this proclamation. And, sir, I know your family is here, and I've met them, and I would say to parents and family, if you wondered if he went into the right profession, if you wondered if one person could make a difference, if you've ever wondered, will he make a difference? Yes, he has. Yes, he did. And yes, he will. So with that, on behalf of the City of San Bruno, I'm going to come down, thank you, acknowledge you, and I'm sure realizing the difference that you have made and your actions. Thank you. Appreciate my colleagues and the audience for allowing that to go first so we can have his family proceed home. Now we will go back to the regular item, which is public comments, and I have a statement. This is the same statement I read on the 2nd at our council retreat, which has been asked of me to read. And it is, anyone who wishes to provide public comment should fill out a speaker card and turn it into the city clerk. They're located in the back. They're green. City clerk's up here. Any person wishing to address the city council will be called upon to the podium to speak at the appropriate time. All statements made to the city council must be made at the appropriate time of the meeting and may not be shouted from the audience. Speakers will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak, subject to discretion based on the anticipation length in the meeting and the speaker cards. Members of the public may not defer their time to another member of the public. If a speaker at the time that they're called wishes not to come forward and speak, they may decline that, and we will go on to the next speaker. In the interest of facilitating city business, members of the audience must not jeer, boo, applaud, or cause any disruption during the meeting, including times when other members of the public are speaking and at the podium. If a disruption occurs, I will call a recess. I will also have the right to request removal of any member of the audience who disrupts the meeting. No member of the audience or person speaking at the podium may approach the council or staff at any time before, during, or after the meeting. Any documents being presented to the city council must be provided to the city clerk before public comment. Members of the audience are strictly prohibited from entering the area between the podium and the dais and staff. Anyone entering the area is subject to removal and may be arrested. So that's just so that everybody is on the same page. That's under, a lot of it under our policy procedures. So with that, we will now move on to public comment, and we will now begin with the city clerk calling everyone up. How many cards do we have for public?
We have 4 cards.
And we will have 3 minutes, please.
The members of the public: Justin Fang, Stephanie Abugarbi, Ray Moser, and Kinda D. Please approach the podium.
Good evening, folks. Tonight, the City of San Bruno has the privilege of discussing our future and our finances. The city will go over its usual tasks of approving payrolls, planning for parks, and approving the approximately $65 million budget of San Bruno. These finances will go towards building the future of our city out of its stagnant past and present. Though it may feel like a tedious task, it's one that many in the world right now do not have the pleasure of doing. In Gaza, at present, bombs drop on the last so-called safe zone, Rafah. It's the world's most densely populated region, harboring 1.5 million people. In contrast, San Bruno has approximately 42,275 residents, at least according to 2021 consensus. Do you know how much their budget is, or how much it'll cost to repair Rafah and the whole of Gaza? As of November 3rd, according to Reuters, it will cost Gaza nearly $1.2 billion alone just to rebuild infrastructure for their most basic needs: water, food, electricity, only the necessities. It'll cost an estimated $50 billion to repair the whole of Gaza. This figure was released on November 27th, so I imagine the numbers have increased greatly, as has the damage. Keep this in mind tonight as we discuss our parks, our roads, and our business as usual. We're lucky to be free of unending violence and to be here discussing these trivial things today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, City Council. I was at the last special meeting a Friday ago, and during that meeting, street sweeping was briefly touched upon. But due to the nature of the meeting, a full conversation could not be facilitated. I thought some interesting points about equity and effectiveness of street sweeping were brought up. When I was at the meeting, Councilman Marty Medina rightfully questioned the effectiveness of ticketing and ticket enforcement as it affects the residents of his districts in vast majority. Councilman Salazar refuted this line of questioning by bringing up how ticketing is necessary to prevent flooding by moving parked cars away from storm drains, and that the sweeping helps to alleviate that. Councilman Marty Medina responded by questioning whether or not the ticketing was the only effective way of achieving the street sweeping, as it mostly affected the people of his district, and unfairly, the other sides of the San Bruno are not ticketed the same. In my opinion, this conversation was cut short, as the conversation ended with both Councilman Salazar and Mayor Medina defending the necessity of ticketing and sweeping of the east side of San Bruno, as it prevents flooding. I believe that it is important that this conversation is extended to the public, and that I request that a conversation of sweeping is agendized for the next City Council meeting. To my knowledge, this has been a hotly debated issue for nearly 10 years, although I could be wrong. With a changing climate and continuing community frustrations, we must take full and meaningful steps to reach an equitable conclusion. We must make sure that this issue does not plague the city for another 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Kinda. Today is the 129th day of the genocide on Gaza. I will be telling you a story of only one of the horrific things that have happened in the last 30 days since this council has voted no on agendizing a ceasefire. This is a story about 6-year-old Palestinian Hind Rajab. Hind called an emergency line and begged for her life. She begged for paramedics from the Palestinian Red Crescent to come and rescue her. Hind was stuck in her family's vehicle and was surrounded by Israeli tanks and soldiers. These soldiers killed 5 of Hind's family that were in her vehicle. Hind was the only living family member left in the vehicle, sitting among dead bodies, pleading for paramedics to come and save her. On February 10th, 2024, her decomposing body was found 12 days after her call and plea for help, as well as the bodies of the paramedics who attempted to save her, Yusuf Zaino and Ahmed Al-Madhoun. The ambulance and paramedics that were sent to save her were bombed by Israeli forces. Her mother, Wissam Rajah, has left a message for the world. This is her message. Everyone has failed us. I swear I will never forgive you or any human involved. The council members who opposed a ceasefire have failed Hind, have failed San Bruno, and have failed humanity. Call for a ceasefire.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Mayor, council members, I'm dealing with the city, an issue with the city since 2017. Thank you. And it's basically, I would like a crosswalk painted in our intersection. It's the largest, I think, intersection in San Bruno that doesn't have a crosswalk, and all the city says is, we don't really have to do it. I recently talked to, I guess, someone new who said, well, you know, a lot of people have had this job and come and gone. But that doesn't solve the problem of the people just wanting to walk across the street on College between Susan and Longview, in case you're wondering what street. And I think it's time, you know, if I light a fire under you guys, maybe you guys could tell them to get a move on. We'd like a stop sign put up there also. And they say they have to get a survey done and another company involved. And I'm thinking, I'll pay for the stop sign. I'll help you guys put it up, literally put it up. I'm not asking a lot. A lot of elderly people live up there and want to cross the intersection. They got their grandkids in strollers and stuff, and it's unsafe. One neighbor said it's like playing Froggy, the game where cars zoom by and you got to go forward, backward. Me and Mr. Medina were walking across there, and we started to cross the street and had to get back up on the sidewalk because someone was crossing Longview, going up to Susan. It's unsafe. And if the city takes, you know, I was told, well, we might get done in April with a report. That doesn't help us. Just start by painting simple crosswalks. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Are there any other speakers under items that are not on the agenda? Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Milano, and I am going to speak on an item later on the agenda, but I can't sit here and not say anything when our community is still crying out, when there's so much going on in the world right now. So I feel it's trivial, some of the things that we're going to be discussing right now. But on a personal note, I would like to ask the council that we refocus back on what the purpose of your job is here. And when I started coming to the city council meetings in August, I was a layman to all of these procedures. I didn't know how the city council worked. I didn't know how local governments worked. And I've learned pretty quickly. But from what I was told, what I've read, the city council is here to serve its constituents. And repeatedly, the people of San Bruno have been asking for this ceasefire resolution. And it's been really difficult for me to be quiet as a business owner because, like some of the council members, I too have had some backlash about even having a position. But it's something that you can't really deny. And when people show up week after week after week, you know, to those people on Facebook saying, oh, the city council needs to focus on downtown, I want to say, well, where have you been all those months that I've been coming to the city council member meetings and not a lot of our community shows up? So I would like to ask that the city council refocus back on what our constituents are actually asking for. These are things that the people actually care for, the people that live in this town want from you. And a resolution is not going to, you know, create peace in the world, but it's going to make your constituents feel heard. As a woman, I can tell you that how important that is when you feel unseen and unheard. So I would just like to echo the sentiments of our community that, you know, will continue to show up here and that we support personally because, you know, there's a lot going on in the world right now and we're talking about, you know, beautification of our downtown and things like that. So with all due respect, I hope that you all consider your positions and the people that you're here to serve. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other speakers? Hearing and seeing none from the clerk, we will move on to item 6, which is consent. Oh, and on the consent, on item G, that's G, which is consider adoption of a resolution establishing an award of contract policy and approving standard form agreements. We're going to move that to conduct of business. City manager has asked that because it's a big policy decision that should have more focus on that, so we will move that. We have the other items on the agenda as well. All items are considered routine or implemented at an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. There will be a single public comment period for all items in this section unless a council member requests to pull an item for a separate vote. And so with that, we will begin. Anybody have any separate items they wish to pull for a separate vote? No. Any items for a comment or question?
Through the mayor, I have brief comments on items D and E.
D and E. Thank you. Councilmember Medina.
Yes, thank you. Item F.
Thank you. Okay, if there are none others, there was no separate votes, we'll start to go down. First two are Councilmember Hamilton. Item D, consider adoption of a resolution accepting the 22-23 slurry seal project as complete. Councilmember.
Thank you. So I just wanted to, this particular, excuse me, this particular item is, it's a routine matter to sign off on a slurry seal project. But I've been saying, excuse me, I've been saying for a while that I don't think that we toot our own horn enough for the things that we do complete here in the city. As you know, our streets are probably the number one thing that people bring up to me when talking to folks in the community about what we need to focus on. This was an important project, and I just wanted to acknowledge the completion of this great project and that this work continues. We have many millions of dollars of work scheduled in the coming year for street repair, and this work continues. So I just wanted to acknowledge the completion of this project, acknowledge our staff for completing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Medina.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Hamilton. It is very important that we do acknowledge that we're able to do more of this work, primarily because the voters allowed us to increase the revenues from Measure G. This year is the largest amount of paving and paving maintenance than I can recall from being on the council to being an employee here over the last 20 years. So I know our community has a lot of questions about when is my street going to get done. And so I wanted to point out that for the slurry seal, which is just putting the oil in the sand to seal off a street that extends that life, that's this first part of the work. 4.14 center miles were done out of 89 miles in the city. So that's, I can't do that math in my head, that's a little over 4.5%. So if we were going to do that every year, it's going to take us 20 plus years to do that part of the maintenance work. We have so many streets that need to be maintained, repaved, and it's costly of how much we can do. So I wanted to acknowledge that with staff, and I've been sending questions along with Council Member Alvarez about how do we let the public know which streets are next, because that's the number one question I get. People are asking, well, when is my street going to get paved? And I think there's enough uncertainty in the public that we need to be able to share that and to show what we're doing and how much more it's going to take to upgrade our streets in San Bruno. So thank you.
Anything else from colleagues? And I think the thing that I brought up too is that people do have a lot of those questions, as was indicated, is why is this street again? When is mine next? It's failed. So how do we determine which failed street goes? What is a slurry? There was once a presentation on PowerPoint that I thought kind of really elaborated a lot of that information. I think it'd be good to put on the website, but I think some of those basic questions are what folks are trying to understand. They hear progress is being made, but again, if your street has potholes you're driving on in your world, it hasn't been made. So I think there's a bigger need for that information to be available for folks to quickly go to and try to see where it's at. So,
Mr. Mayor?
yes.
You mentioned the key word potholes. So if there is a pothole on your street, report it. You can call Public Works, but the best way is to use San Bruno Responds. It's an app that you could take a picture of it, it gets documented, it gets acknowledged, and then it can be tracked. And perhaps at some point, maybe in the future, it is on the city website, so you can also look under San Bruno Responds, and our maintenance workers do come out. We understand there's a lot of potholes around San Bruno, and they get to them as quickly as they can. So thank you for reminding me about potholes, Mr. Mayor.
No problem. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to E, consider adoption of resolution accepting the San Bruno Avenue and Cherry Avenue intersection improvement project as complete. Councilmember Hamilton.
So thank you. This is a little bit of an extension of the same comment about a key improvement to the city getting complete. This one is more along the lines of finally getting complete. I have a special connection to this particular item because 2 city jobs ago, when I was on the Traffic Safety and Parking Committee, I was on that committee for 12 years, and only once did we send an item to City Council for approval and request that it be handled urgently. And this was that item. Unfortunately, we did it in 2018, and it was just completed here in 2024. But it's still an incredibly important project. There was a pedestrian who was killed at this intersection, and these of San Bruno Avenue and Cherry, and these improvements are designed specifically to protect pedestrians and improve the traffic flow through that intersection. So I'm very, very pleased that this project is complete, and I just wanted to acknowledge our staff for getting this done. Thank you.
Anything else from colleagues? Councilmember Medina.
Yes, I definitely want to thank staff for that. Things sometimes take longer than we all wish for them to take. The important thing, for whatever safety concern that you have, the appropriate location is to bring it to the Traffic Safety Parking Committee. They meet monthly. They can take your emails. You can show up in public and express what your concerns are, and hopefully they'll be able to work on it for you. So make sure that you bring those concerns to the city through the Traffic Safety Parking Committee. Thank you.
Any other comments? Let's move on to F, consider adoption of a resolution establishing a no parking zone for vehicles over 6 feet tall north of Santa Lucia Avenue and El Camino Real intersection. Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, I wanted to acknowledge that work as well. What's really important to go forward with the changes in the law that are coming, that are going to be enforced, you will not be able to park near a crosswalk. And I wanted to ask staff to keep that in mind. I'm sure you are, but of how that's going to impact across our city of all the crosswalks where you will not be able to park, and I believe it's 20 feet. You will get warnings, but you'll get citations starting in 2025, I believe. So it's already tough, I know, to park in San Bruno. It's also important that we provide some space so that you can see the person who's trying to cross the crosswalk, because as we know, and everybody could deal with this with the street, when people park right next to the crosswalk, you have a hard time seeing somebody cross, and especially if they're children. So this is a law that is going into effect. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and It's going to make things definitely harder, but hopefully safer.
Any other comments from colleagues? With none, is there any members of the public that wish to speak on consent?
I have no speaker cards.
Okay, with that, then I'll bring it back to council. There's items 6A through 6I with us pulling G to conduct of business.
Through the mayor, I make a motion to approve all items on consent with the exception of item G.
Thank you.
Second?
Motion Hamilton, second Marty Medina. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, passes unanimously. With that, we'll move on to item number 7, conduct of business.
Item 7A, consider adopting the fiscal year 2024 to 25 top priority initiatives and budget principles and provide direction on requests for additional information for initiatives that are currently on hold pending resource allocation.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, did you want to take 6G first? The one you just pulled off consent?
Sure.
The one I just pulled off consent. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Sorry, Madam Clerk.
Could you read 6G? We'll do that, and then we'll move into the last.
Item 6G, consider adoption of a resolution establishing an award of contract policy and approving standard form agreements.
City manager and CFO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Nick Pegueros. I'm the city's chief financial officer, and I'm pleased this evening to present to you a recommended policy that provides an update to our existing purchasing procedures with a specific focus on the award of contract, the thresholds that the city manager is authorized to execute contracts, as well as the bidding requirements. The council last reviewed the signing authority for the city manager, and by signing authority, I mean the authority to execute agreements without coming to city council for specific approval in 2019, and at that point, the authority was set at $75,000. As we all know, since then, there's been considerable erosion of purchasing power due to the impacts of inflation. And one of the recommendations is to increase that authority to $92,000, as well as incorporate an annual inflation factor that's tied to the cost of construction inflation as measured by the Engineering News Record, CC, Cost of Construction Index. There are a couple of items that I'd like to draw the council's attention to is that as part of our efforts to streamline the city's operations, we are requesting that items that are already budgeted, operating items that are already budgeted, that the city manager have the authority to execute agreements up to that budgeted amount. We have sort of mixed compliance with our purchasing policy currently. For example, utilities which exceed $75,000 do not come to the city council. We have other areas where we are operating inconsistent with our existing policy. Perhaps the best example I can provide is the purchase of the police vehicles, where we returned to council back in October in order to receive approval so that we could make purchases up to the budgeted authority effectively. As I mentioned, the current purchasing procedure exempts vehicles, or I didn't mention this, but the current purchasing procedure exempts vehicles. However, we have been working to we have brought those to council in the past, and again, I highlight that just as an inconsistency in past practice with our current procedure in place. In addition, the recommendation is that the city manager have authority to execute public project contracts up to $250,000. There is a bidding requirement for contracts that are $200,000 or less, and that those are informal bids, and then projects over $200,000 are formal bids. Again, this would be contingent upon budget authority that is provided as part of the adopted budget or subsequent amendments. And then if it exceeds $250,000, it comes to city council for approval. An added layer here in order to ensure that an efficient operation as well as to maximize the city's protection of liability optimize and optimize risk management procedures. The procedure provides these expanded authorities only for situations where we are executing a standard form agreement that has been developed and vetted by the city attorney's office. The reason that's important is that not all vendors will accept our terms of contract, and that may have a that may expose the city to a level of risk that we would want to bring that to council so that you're fully briefed on what that may be. We frequently find that vendors that provide software as a service tend not to accept our standard form agreement. So those contracts would still come to City Council for your review and approval. Again, the key here is the things that are routine, the items where the contractor is accepting our the service provider is accepting our standard form agreement. We would be able to streamline those operations and move along in doing the good work within the City Council adopted budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything to add, City Manager? Or CFO did fine. Okay. With that, let's see if there's any questions from colleagues in regards to that. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you for the report. So just to make sure I understand this, this amendment will raise the current city manager purchasing authority from 75,000 to 92,000. And then there will be a yearly change based on the construction inflation index.
Correct. And I would draw the council's attention to Table 1 of the policy. It's on page 49 of the packet. That's perhaps the cleanest and clearest version of the authority that's being outlined. I do want to caveat and make sure that this isn't, that I'm not sort of glossing over this. The $92,000 purchasing authority is intended for items that are not budgeted. We would come back to you because we need budget authority to spend money. So, however, there are instances where there's efficiencies gained by multi-year agreements. Mm-hmm. And in that case, because the City Council has not adopted the future year agreements, the $92,000 per year, as adjusted by inflation annually, would take effect.
Great, thank you. So I apologize for not sending this question in advance, and because I hate to do that and put you guys on the spot. But do we know for how many years it's been at this 75,000 level?
Since 2019.
Since 2019. Okay, thank you. And then when it gets adjusted yearly for CCI, does that increase of authority need to come back to council for approval, or is it going to be automatic?
As the policy is written, it would be automatic.
Okay. So all I would ask is that can there be either an item on the consent calendar or something just to let us know and let the public know when it increases, so that we're not having to go look it up or figure it out.
That's more than yes, we can accommodate that.
Great. Thank you.
Other comments, questions from colleagues at this time?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor.
Alvarez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify the contract amount cap of 92. Is that per contract for one company, or could this be combined? So if there's one company that for two types of contract, would that add up to the 92, if that would be the maximum?
Our Councilmember Alvarez, our current practice is that we award contract based on scope of duties, and so so in the event that we have a contractor performing multiple scopes of duties that are, oftentimes we see that as projects sort of evolve. We'll start one project with a consultant or with a service provider, and they'll be doing that work, and then there may be another project that comes up several months later, and they may or may not be selected. Those are two independent purchases.
Thank you.
Anything else from colleagues at this time? Let's see if there's any members of the public that wish to speak on this item.
I have no speaker cards.
Okay, thank you. And again, obviously, it's trying to streamline, trying to have efficiency, and trying to keep up by having the index. So thank you for the report. This is now a conduct of business and is an adoption of a resolution. Is there any action by colleagues?
I'll make proof.
Motion is Salazar, seconded Alvarez to approve the resolution as was read by the city clerk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, passed unanimously. Now, I hate to do this to city clerk again, but let's go on to item A.
Consider adopting the fiscal year 2024 to 25 top priority initiatives and budget principles and provide direction on requests for additional information for initiatives that are currently on hold pending resource allocation.
So now I'd like to call on the city manager to provide staff's presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Alex McIntyre. I'm your city manager. I have a very brief presentation following the council's 4.5-hour meeting on Friday, February 2nd, to undertake its goal-setting efforts. And I think the council actually was able to get through its meeting in lickety-split time, and we were able to actually adjourn prior to the end of the scheduled time. So that was very good news. So two quick outcomes, or I'm sorry, I tend to jump ahead. Can you advance the slide, please? Anyone? I don't mean you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so two quick outcomes and objectives of tonight's meeting and also, tonight's action and also from last Friday was top priority initiatives for the council and also asking the council to adopt certain budget principles. Next slide, please. The council agreed to 5 top priorities after a thorough conversation and recommendation by me and the staff. And the first and foremost was to finalize the downtown park improvements plans. And the council will recall there were 3 parks that are being looked upon for consideration. And I'm going to lean to the city attorney when I start straying into dangerous territory because we have some conflicts on the dais. And so please elbow me when I go too far. Second item is to assess the fiscal feasibility of the transit corridor plan, and this really was an economic analysis of whether that 10-plus-year-old plan is still a tool that's going to create any kind of economic development in and around our downtown. Third was to initiate downtown beautification efforts, and this really has to do with investment in revisiting the planters and putting in more appropriate plants, fixing the irrigation systems, looking at pennants. What are they called? Banners. And a few other items just to beautify the downtown, to really make that kind of investment. Fourth was stabilizing CityNet's financial condition. The council is very aware. In fact, you just approved the city's act for 2023 and called out there was the concern about the fiscal stability of CityNet and really finding a path forward. And finally, sort of focusing internally on the organization, conducting an employee compensation and classification study to basically see where we stand in the market for in employee compensation and benefits, making sure our classification system is sound, and just making sure we're showing that investment into the workforce. So those were your 5 goals that the council agreed upon. Next slide. And then the budget principles. This is a new request by me as your new city manager. As the staff starts to build its budget for the council and for the community, I want to make sure I'm following a certain set of guidelines, certain set of principles that the council has adopted. I've used these successfully in my past, and they've proven to really keep us on track as we are moving forward. You'll see them in sort of 3 buckets, and one is financial, one is capacity, and one is communication. We did walk through this on Friday, a week ago Friday, in greater detail. You'll see the very explicit narratives of what those 12 budget principles are. Thank you. Dozen budget principles. Really things around cost recovery and revenue, making sure that except for where the council wants to subsidize, that we are receiving the full cost to provide that service to whoever it is that's requesting it. Focused on unfunded liabilities, and this falls mostly to the pension issue. Looking at one-time revenues and making sure we're not necessarily redirecting those into operations when they should. One-time revenues really should be spent on one-time one-time expenditures. Looking at the issue of salary savings, we have 288 employees 288 authorized employees. Just because of attrition, we tend to have vacancies, and how do we properly redirect some of those salary savings? Making sure we're maximizing our investments, and also focused on reserves. Council's done some good work on modifying its reserve policies this year. We talked a lot about capacity, and the capacity here really has to do with your staff capacity, its ability to do the work that's being asked, and making sure we're setting ourselves up for success. And you can see the various bullet points up there. And the last item, and I think this is a very important one that perhaps we fall down on sometimes, is the idea of communication. Sharing with the public what it is the council has done with its budget, trying to take a 200 or 300 page document and simplifying it in a way that the public understands what's important to the council, where you're directing your investments, so that they can see whatever the hopeful successful outcomes that we have. I think you went the wrong direction. No. So tonight we're asking you two things. One is to reaffirm your top 5 initiatives, and second of all, to adopt the budget principles. And the staff and I are available should you have any questions on any of those topics. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions at this time on that presentation, with the caveat with the city attorney chiming in on one topic?
Mr. Mayor, I would ask that the city council hold their questions until after we consider the one item that's been segmented out. But you can move to public comment.
I'm going to go to the public. Yeah. So we're going to see if there are any members of the public that are wishing to speak on this item.
Okay, I have Eleni Katut, Matt Jones, Maha Yasser Shehadi, Justin, and Jules C.
Hello, Council. My name's Eleni Katut. I just wanted to comment on 7A. So part of it, one of your priorities is conducting that survey to tell the city how to better compensate our workers, since we have a low retention rate and it's been difficult to fill some roles. I'd like to suggest, though, that our money is spent elsewhere, possibly on developing a climate initiative. It's my understanding that San Bruno is the only city in San Mateo County that's yet to do that, and that in the past our excuse for not implementing one is because of the San Bruno fire. While that was terrible and it did take our city some time to recover from it, I feel like now would be a good time to focus on a climate initiative. Yeah, and I don't know, I just feel like our money isn't really going to be spent well if we're focusing on trying to figure out why people don't want to work here, because I feel like it's clear that folks don't really want to work for a city that has a leadership issue. When we have leaders who speak to staff in a harsh and belittling manner and attend city council meetings while impaired. So the answer would just be really simple. We can look within and see why no one wants to work for San Bruno. Secondly, I know that one of the priorities is working on Centennial Plaza. The last time that was worked on, it was done pretty poorly and caused the city to have to block off some areas because it wasn't safe for people to be using that space. And so I just want to know how we're going to prevent that from happening again and make sure that whoever's building Centennial Plaza is going to do so with the safety of the community in mind. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Matt Jones. I worked for the city from 2015 to 2017 as a contract planner in the Community Development Department. I worked with Councilmember Alvarez, and we overlapped the entire time, and she was a fantastic coworker. One of the things that came up when I worked for the city was the climate action plan. It was put on hold when then the pipeline explosion happened, and it was shelved, and that was kind of the excuse for years. And it's unfortunate because, you know, the Bay Area has kind of been a leader on climate. There's tons of cities that are moving forward with their second round of climate action planning, and I was tasked before I left to work on that, and I was brought in as a consultant to manage a consultant that worked with the city staff, which made me question why were there so many resources being spent on that, and then when I left, it never took off. And in fact, the website doesn't even list it anymore. I couldn't even find it. It was there last year, and it just disappeared. So to me, that's really disappointing that the city's not prioritizing climate, because, you know, we're seeing increased risk with wildfires, and we really need to lead in that area. Second thing I wanted to bring up was staffing. There were a number of things that I saw when I worked for the city that were incredibly disappointing, that showed to me a lack of leadership. I really think cities need to be actively recruiting from colleges, from high schools, to bring in more millennials and Gen Z into the public sector. I think we're losing a lot of those folks into tech, and we need to be able to be competitive in the public sector. One of the things I saw when I worked here was there was a former council member who used his position as an architect to get favorable outcomes for his projects and push around his weight. He passed increases to building permit fees, but then lobbied for his client to not have to pay those same fees. I had to work on those projects. It was really uncomfortable. And those projects, for some reason, always got assigned to me because no one else wanted to do them. That's not behavior that I think is becoming of leadership in this city. That same council member, who's no longer with us, he was a prior council member, but he made a bunch of sexist comments to one of my coworkers, which caused her to leave the city. She went to go work for a woman-owned firm in the private sector. So again, we lost a talented young woman to the private sector because there was no accountability to prevent things like sexism in the workplace. So I just wanted to ask you guys to please take a good look in the mirror and see that it is lack of leadership, which is why staff is not being retained. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, it's me again. I just wanted to thank the city manager for helping to narrow down the city's focus to the core 5 items that were spoken about during the special meeting and spoken about today. The feasibility of TCP employee classification, downtown park, downtown beautification, and CityNet's fiscal sustainability. For many, including myself, the city has felt stagnant for a very long time, and it's really wonderful to see that it seems like finally the city is putting items that are both actionable and achievable in a short-term frame. It's something that I'd always wondered about growing up in San Bruno, what exactly the planning method was in terms of figuring out the city's priorities. I was very surprised to hear that at the special meeting, it seemed like the first time that the city staff had come out in such a well-organized manner to discuss directly with city council. I may be mistaken, but I just wanted to thank the city manager on that. I know he's brand new to the job, and thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Maha. I'm glad to see CityNet on the 5 priorities. I just want to remind the council that a decision on CityNet, whether it is investing in it or selling it, is important to make soon. For too long, the city has stalled on making a decision, costing the city millions upon millions of dollars. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
San Bruno is the only city that does not currently have a climate initiative. As others have spoken about tonight, it is disheartening that the city is stagnating on our climate initiative. It needs to be added as a priority as the climate continues to degrade and harm our communities. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other speakers on this topic?
I have no other speaker cards.
Okay, so with, I'm sorry.
Me again. I want to also echo Justin's thanks to the city manager. It does seem like the new wave of the new hires have been making moves to progress things. I've only been a business owner in San Bruno for less than a year, but repeatedly I hear repeatedly over and over of how San Bruno was bustling, how the downtown was bustling in the 70s. I mean, that was 50 years ago. It's been called a sleepy town. It's pretty evident that we're behind the other communities. So I was very happy to see downtown as one of the top priorities, but I have to also echo that I'm surprised to see an initiative where we're spending money on staffing and things that are affecting internally the city as one of the top 5 priorities, as opposed to something serious like a climate initiative. I think it's been said repeatedly as well that San Bruno is just behind. We're just behind in our development. We're behind in the way that we operate. And I think that, hopefully now we're starting to catch up, but it's been said again and again, we have to look to the leadership. So this is my call on the public. This is an election year. If, we're not happy with the way things are now, there's a chance to change it. So I hope that people come out and start participating more in the local politics and coming to these meetings and speaking out about what's important to them. Hopefully the city council, the active city council, begins to respond to public comment, because that's what we're here for. We're here to tell you what we want, to tell you what's important to us. And for the last 6 months that I've been coming to these meetings, we haven't gotten a lot of response. I haven't gotten any response to all of my flurry of questions for the last 6 months, with the exception of maybe Marty directing me with who to speak to, or, maybe somebody directing me to budget meetings, but it hasn't been clear. So I would also like to thank the city manager for making communication important. I do think that it is important for the public to learn how the local government operates and how we can affect the local government and the way that it operates. So I do hope that you prioritize other initiatives instead of number 5 on the list. I do have a copy of the 2019 scape plan, downtown scape plan, which I was told was spent like over $60,000, $75,000 was spent on this scape plan from 5 years ago that not much has been done on. So these plans that we seem to be investing money on don't really seem to go anywhere. So I just hope that there's more consideration around where the money is being spent. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other speaker cards? Are there any other speakers? With that, we'll bring it back to council. There are a few things maybe that we, city manager, just for some clarity on conduct employee compensation and classification study. And maybe you can explain what that is.
Certainly.
And just, anyway, I think that would help.
Certainly, and with due respect, I think we have 288 employees who are serving the public, and I think the reference to frivolous, I take offense to, and I will take offense on behalf of my coworkers. We are an important part of getting the job done. We're a critical part of getting the job done. And if we're going to do the work in the downtown, if we're going to do the work to protect the city, if we're going to do the work to put out fires and save people, you need good employees. And we have a hard time recruiting, and this is an opportunity for us to figure out, well, why is it we have a hard time recruiting? It may be leadership, it may be my fault. Maybe I need to take credit for that or take the blame for that. There are a lot of reasons why people don't come and work for a public agency. And looking for millennials, it would be great if the millennials want to come work for us. We got to make sure we have the right work environment. So part of that really has to do with making sure minimally we can offer a compensation program that's going to meet the needs of a future workforce. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm sorry, you asked about the comp and class study. So this is really a chance for us to figure out within a hierarchy in our organization through various classes, and there was a gentleman here who described himself as a former planner, so you have a whole planner series, for example. We want to make sure that the gaps between pay between the various levels is appropriate, so that when people promote, they're promoting to a higher level, more responsibility, more compensation. We also need to make sure that those planners are being paid at a market rate that is comparable out whatever the market might be for a planner in our particular community. So, that to me is very, very important. Us constantly beating a drum to try to go hire people to keep not succeeding is ridiculous. You talk about wasting time, that's where the waste of time is. So if we had an organization that was culturally sound, we had an organization that compensated appropriately, we had an organization that was led well, I think all three of those things will be very important. So that is the comp and class study, and I'll stop there if you have any more questions.
I think I think you brought into that, and that is also used, and sometimes being a former city employee, employees wish that.
Right.
Because they want to have a classification and that re-examine. Am I still doing the same job? Am I in a different class? When shop stewards from the Teamsters sit at the table, there's always the debate, well, that's not the job I do, it's this job. Well, we have to validate that. And so those are the things, too, that employees do look for to have that. I do want to point out, we do have the full executive team.
Correct.
So there was a challenge, but they are all here and before us. I think there was also many times brought up about climate action.
Certainly, and
So I
again,
think
for
that
the
would be
public's
worth-
benefit, what we asked the council to do was to choose 5 priority initiatives. One of the initiatives we are working on is a climate action plan, and the council has been made aware in the past through the housing element that process is going to get completed. It will be in the budget next year. We will be looking at a climate action initiative. So, rest assured, public, that day is coming. We are playing catch up with the rest of our cities in the county to make sure we have an appropriate climate action plan. So that it will be budgeted. It will be something we pursue.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, so we've had that, and now let me turn it over to Councilmember Medina.
Yeah.
Can I clarify if I have a question about the climate action plan? I can ask that now, or do?
I think the appropriate time to discuss that will be after we deal with the first item, and then, well, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So thank you for the reminder about the climate action plan. That's something that we have been talking about. From the city's website, a request for a proposal was opened on December 19th of 2023, and it was due on January 26th of 24. So just wanted to clarify that's the same thing we're talking about, that is something that we're looking into, and that it's going forward. Just because it's not the top 5 doesn't mean it's not important. And thank you, City Manager, we had 6 years ago, we had 105 priorities. Then we went down to 50-something, and then to 40, and then to get the things done that we need to get done, we need to focus on getting those done first. So I'll leave it at that, and then is it time for me to say what I need to say? All right. All right, so one of the things that is in this priority is the downtown parks, and I live within 500 feet of Florida Park. So upon consultation with our city attorney, I will need to recuse myself on this matter, and I need to step away from the dais for that.
Thank you. So at this time, are there any council questions about the proposed priority budget to finalize downtown park improvement plans from colleagues? No? Councilmember Salazar? Vice Mayor Salazar, sorry.
So you said budget, so
Proposed budget priorities to finalize.
okay.
So, City Attorney, you want to clarify?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me just clarify that what we've done is this discussion and consideration of the top 5 priorities is going to be segmented so that you'll be considering all of the top 5 priorities presented in the staff report. However, we're first going to have you discuss and consider the parks, whether to prioritize the downtown parks. Once that discussion is completed and you've made your final decision on that part of the top 5 priorities, Councilmember Medina can come back, and then you can consider the remaining 4 items, but you cannot reopen the discussion on the parks item that you will discuss at this time.
Okay.
Are there any questions about that?
No, that makes
Okay.
sense. Okay.
Thank you.
So, So then, my question would be, given that the next item on our agenda is specifically funding one of the 3 projects that fall within that, so I still agree that that should be one of our priorities, but I'm wondering if we are making that other decision on the second item in the agenda, will that automatically preclude us from doing any of the other items? Because we haven't had any discussions on how we balance those priorities within those 3 parks. And so being that we have both of these on the same agenda, I'm wondering how permanent of a decision that's going to be, and how does that impact this initiative?
Sure. So if I can, and to remind the council, one of the things I had mentioned to you all on Friday, February 2nd, was once a decision's made about a park, whether we're going forward or not, we're going to be done with it. And you'll recall it. One of my important points here was, whatever your action is later on tonight on Centennial, but whatever that decision is, we're going to go with whatever the final outcome is. If it's a majority says yes, that's great. Majority says no, then we're done. We're moving that project will get parked, no pun intended, and we'll focus on the other 2 parks and call that a day. So I think by your vote tonight, we'll set what your priority is. By your next vote tonight, we'll set your priority on that specific park. But the other 2 parks are still considered things we're going to focus on until you tell us we're no longer focusing on them. Keep in mind, the goal for us is to bring this to you fully baked, and so that then you can make a decision. My goal isn't to get you to say yes necessarily. My goal is to say, do you have all the information, all the information you need to make a decision, whatever that decision happens to be. Does that help a little bit? There is a coincidence of timing tonight, which I couldn't control, because the bids are due. We have to respond to the bids, and then you have this item as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that item at this time? Questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
Okay. I know you like to segment comments or questions from comments. So I don't have any questions because it's clear. I do have comments. It's going to be not a surprise to anybody in the room that I am for this item, for this priority, to focus on our downtown park improvement plans, and for everyone's benefit, that's Centennial Plaza, which we will talk about later tonight, Posey Park, and Florida Park. So it's focusing on these and continuing the focus on these is critically important to the revitalization of our downtown. And I'll be honest, the Posey Park improvements, I probably wouldn't focus on as highly if we didn't have a large Measure K grant that will expire this year. That's earmarked only for that park only. So I'm absolutely in favor of us doing improvements to that park up to the scope of that particular grant, so that we do not lose those funds and we can take advantage of those to make a meaningful improvement to that park, which is a gateway into our town for folks who are getting off the train. So I am absolutely in favor of keeping this item on as one of our 5 top priority initiatives. Yeah, we're only talking about that one, so I'll reserve the rest of my comments.
Any other comments on the parks? I'll just call it that. I think we know what I'm referencing. And just as Councilmember Hamilton said, one thing I've been pushing is, thanks to Supervisor Pine, who did give $200,000 of Measure K because of the theme. It was the gateway and that train and what it does. And they do expire at the end of this year. And so to me, I think it would be wasteful, disrespectful of Supervisor Pine's Measure K funds, which are everybody's funds, to not be utilized, and they would then go back. They're not transferable. It's not something you can put in a savings account for later. So, but anyway, that's it for me at this time. If there are no other questions or comments, but since we're going to take an action, I should probably see if there's any members of the public or if there are any speaker cards. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You already took public comment on the after the.
So that we won't have to do it again, even though we're looking for a separate vote?
Yeah.
Okay, so on the parks, let's just call it that, I would look for a motion from council.
I'd like to make a motion that we include finalized downtown park improvement plans as one of our top 5 priority initiatives for fiscal year 2024-25.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion Hamilton, seconded Alvarez, to approve the parks aspect of one of those 5 initiatives. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous 4-0 with Councilmember Medina recusing himself. With that, we will have Mr. Medina return. Returns. Okay, now let's open up the discussion regarding the remaining 4 items to be included in the top 5 priorities. We can reopen the discussion about the downtown parks. Are there any questions from council members, from members of the city council to staff on those other 4 items at this time? Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question was if we would to prioritize the initiate downtown beautification efforts, including planters, banners, and signage over the transit corridor plan, which is also in the downtown area. Would this require another study for this small item?
So no, what we would do is we'd bring back any award of contract that may be necessary to make the improvements that we're talking about. And as the council's aware, staff did approach the San Bruno Community Foundation about a special grant that might help offset some of the city costs for this effort. So I think it's this would be something we would likely bring back to you within several months to make progress on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from colleagues? If not, Councilmember Hamilton.
So most of what after public comment, I had several things to say, but it's all been covered, most of it very, very well by the city manager. Regarding the climate action plan, when we came into our goal setting session on February 2nd, that was my number 6 of 5 on the list. Actually, no, I take that back. It was number 5 of 5 on my list. And then we had a discussion about the employee compensation classification study. And because the climate action plan is already in progress, I didn't want to take up a slot for of the 5 that we're earmarked to pick for something that is already in progress, which is the climate action plan. It really is important. One of the first things that our city manager identified upon joining our organization, it was alluded that he's brand new. He's new to us. He's with respect. He's not a new city manager. He has a long career of experience being a city manager in many cities. And because of that, I absolutely respect his opinion in these matters. And one of the things that was identified was that we really need to focus on the health of our organization, because every single one of these things, these are the people who are going to execute them. These are the people who are going to get these things done. None of this stuff can happen without our city staff. So we want to have that organization as healthy as possible. And that means being able to recruit the right people and being able to keep the great employees that we have and retain them and not have constant attrition. So we're spending more time training people than we are getting things done. So I just wanted to kind of make those general comments about why the list looks like it does. CityNet was absolutely on my list. I echo the one public comment about CityNet that regardless of what we're going to do, we have to do it. We can't stay in the position that we are right now, where we're just continually losing money. Year after year, we have to identify a path forward and make a decision, and that decision may be unpopular, but it's time to move forward with that. Regarding the other items, I think we can all agree that the transit corridor plan has not yielded the fruits that were promised, or that were hoped, is probably a better word, when it was passed. There have been exactly 0 projects that have been initiated as a result of the Transit Corridor Plan. The one project at Melody Toyota, it was alluded to that that's in the transit corridor, but that's being done under State Bill 35. It would have happened anyway. So we should be spending time to look at that to see what improvements we can make. Potentially, we might have to go back to the voters for it. Who knows? But we don't know unless we spend the effort to look at it, to figure out what we can do to encourage development, encourage smart development within our community to make those improvements. So those are my, and then of course for downtown beautification, everybody knows I'm absolutely for that.
What I would also say, as far as the transit corridor plan, staff can correct me, but it's also part of our housing element that they're having us and requiring us to review some of our aspects, like 1284 and other elements that kind of is what we had done at one point, or back, I think it's 214, I believe, if my memory is correct. But anyway, so other comments are at this time? Because if not, I will look for action from colleagues, if they wish to.
Just a quick clarification, maybe
For
the city
items,
attorney. Are we only, can we combine that also with accepting the budget principles, or is that a separate discussion?
You can combine them all
Okay.
at this time.
So I would like to make a motion that we accept the remaining 4 top priority initiatives on the list, and also that we adopt the budget principles as laid out in the presentation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion Hamilton, seconded Councilmember Martin Medina. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. With that, we will move on to B. Please.
Item B, consider adoption of a resolution approving the design of the Centennial Plaza improvements, authorizing the city manager to execute a construction contract with Suarez and Munoz Construction, Inc. for the Centennial Plaza Improvement Project in an amount not to exceed $1,106,728, approving a construction contingency of $115,000, approving the procurement of a comprehensive project and construction project manager in amount not to exceed $166,000, approving a budget adjustment of $576,259 from the Community Facilities Impact Fee Fund for the completion of the project, and determining the project is exempt under the California Environmental Quality Act.
Thank you for reading all of that. Now we will turn it over to staff. Community Services Director.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council. I'm Travis Carlin, Community Services Director for the city. Tonight I'm here to present the Centennial Plaza Improvement Project for your consideration. Centennial Plaza, as you know, is located at the intersection of Genevieve Avenue and San Mateo Avenue and serves as the visual entrance to those that enter downtown via Genevieve Avenue. The property was acquired by the city in the 1990s. The plaza is currently closed to members of the public and barricaded with ropes since the area has not been landscaped for public use and subsurface footings from a prior structure on the site have not been mitigated or removed. The plaza includes a variety of plants that lack curb appeal. Additional plantings in the middle of the plaza divide the space for a sectioned off appearance. The goals and objectives of this project are, number 1, to increase accessibility for public use. The second goal is to provide an active yet flexible space to support many uses such as musical performances, miscellaneous events, and community gatherings. The third goal is to support a wide range of user groups, and finally to build on the streetscape plan and provide a central downtown amenity. In addition, the project supports the council's initiative for downtown beautification and greening. Long-term use of this property as public space is consistent with the goals and the vision of the Transit Corridors Plan that calls for public gathering areas and green spaces to be provided in the downtown to complement new business and residential development and to encourage public use and enjoyment in the downtown corridor. This project is also consistent with the community input received during the San Bruno Community Foundation's Community Listening Campaign 2.0, where downtown San Bruno upgrades and beautification were identified as top community need. In the follow-up to adopting Strategic Plan 2.0, the board in 2021 identified community building and economic vitality among its strategic grant-making priorities. In 2019, the city adopted a downtown streetscape plan and supported the activation of public spaces. The city began working with Callender Associates Landscape Architects, otherwise known as CALA, in July 2021 to develop a conceptual design to activate the Centennial Plaza. Through various enhancements and realizations, community engagement with the Downtown Ad Hoc Improvement Committee and input from the community took place. The City Council approved the conceptual plan in August of 2022. City staff then approached the San Bruno Community Foundation, was awarded a $500,000 strategic grant in November, contingent on the City Council approving the gap funding required to complete the project. In December 2022 and June 2023, the City Council authorized separate amendments to the design contract and increased funding to include preparation of construction documents and design of a bioretention area to treat rainwater. Staff issued a notice inviting bids in November of 2023 for the construction of the project. On January 16, 2024, staff conducted the bid opening for the project and received 2 bids. The total bid cost includes 4 bid alternates. The alternates are festoon lighting, water filling station, a trellis over the stage, and concrete cube bollards. The award of bid, however, was based on the lowest responsive base bid. The bid alternates were part of the original plan for the project that was reviewed by the Planning Commission and made public as part of the park planning process. These elements were bid separately due to the concerns about anticipated costs. Staff feel that these alternates are an integral part of the project and add value by defining the space and making it more functional and inviting. The lowest responsible base bid received was from Suarez and Munoz Construction Incorporated in the amount of $828,008 with a total bid of $1,106,728. Suarez and Munoz Construction, Inc. has completed numerous similar projects for public agencies such as Hayward Area Recreation and Park District, Emeryville, and San Jose. This slide shows the existing conditions of the site. As mentioned, much of the site is roped off and prohibits public use. Much of the plant material needs to be updated, and the temporary artwork requires decommissioning. Significant excavation and grading of the site will also be required. The concept plan shows maximum use of space and illustrates a plaza area for musical performances, small-scale events, and open areas for play. The plaza has potential for recreational and cultural offerings while serving as a hub for local businesses and downtown community. Surrounding the plaza are shops, cafes, and restaurants. The outdoor plaza would provide seating for visitors with opportunities to rest, have lunch, and visit. When designing the space, the designer presented various images for inspiration. Some of the elements presented are reflective in the design. The informal play area will provide a simplistic but interesting area of play while parents can visit or have coffee from a local shop. Cube bollards will provide protection but allow additional seating at the site. The ornamental plantings and decomposed granite will soften the areas, creating a more inviting space and offered a balance to the hardscape. The slide depicts a trellis. This slide depicts a trellis over the stage, which frames the space and would be one of the main focal points of the park. The downtown area does not have a public drinking fountain. Some business owners have stated that the members of the public come in to simply fill water bottles in their establishments. The water filling station would be a great addition to the central downtown area. The concrete cube bollards are shown at the bottom picture of this slide, as well as the bioswale plantings for drainage, which creates a good balance to the hardscape. The bioretention area was added to the design later in the process due to the parcel not meeting stormwater requirements. In addition, you can see the festoon lighting in the park can offer the opportunity for evening use. The base bid of the project includes permanent lighting for safety and added security, however. This slide depicts a before and after simulation. You'll notice a good balance of hardscape and landscape that provides good flow to the park, creating an inviting outdoor space in central downtown. The stage trellis provides a focal point for the elevated stage, and the hardscape allows for a larger audience area. If the City Council votes to approve this project as presented, the total cost of the project is $1,582,955, which includes $195,227 in completed design and construction contract with Suarez and Munoz in the amount of $1,106,728 and construction contingency of $115,000. To increase the capacity and deliver the project, staff are also recommending procuring comprehensive project and construction management support. Staff will be referring to the city's on-call list for project and construction management and inspection services to provide this service. The estimated for these consultant services is not to exceed $166,000. Therefore, the construction phase of the project is not to exceed $728 with approximately $800,500 remaining in the project budget. The final funding requested to complete the project is $576,259. The funding would be allocated from the Community Facilities Impact Fee Fund that has a current balance of approximately $6.8 million. The bid alternates you see here are highly recommended as they help to define the space and create purpose. These elements would be difficult to add later since much of the cost of the infrastructure needed to achieve each of the alternatives. In addition, construction costs continue to rise, and excavation of a portion of the site will be required to add the festoon lighting and water filling station at a later date. Staff are aware that some elements are more decorative but achieve the comprehensive goals of the space. The City Council can award the contract with the elimination of any or all the alternates to cut the overall cost of the project. The figures you see here for each alternate include project management and contingency. This is the recommendation before you to consider tonight as read by the city clerk. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the presentation at this time? Just on the presentation? Thank you. If not, why don't we see members, ask for members of the public, please, so in case they need to leave.
The first three speakers are Sedena Traxler, Stephen Seymour, and Rebecca Milano.
Good evening, Mayor Medina, City Council. I wanted to shed light on the positive impact a town square would have on the San Bruno community. This renovation is not merely a want, but a need. Last year, the city hosted just one single event all year long, and it lasted all of maybe an hour. And Mayor, you said yourself that there was no seating for any of our seniors. This space could provide benches for our seniors and provide us with a safe place to host reoccurring outdoor events, enjoy takeout from our many wonderful restaurants and delis, giving us an opportunity to grow closer as a community and bring people together. Through numerous surveys and community feedback, it is clear that downtown beautification ranks high on the list of priorities. In fact, in the most recent community survey that the city sent to the residents, it ranked fourth, following closely behind issues such as potholes, homelessness, and crime. It seems we can kill 3 birds here just in downtown alone. It's time to move beyond discussion and surveys and take action. And Councilwoman Sandy Alvarez, you campaigned on downtown beautification, so surely we should have your vote. We all look forward to seeing where you stand at the end of this. And by investing in a town square, we can address the aesthetics on San Mateo Ave and make it a place where people can feel safe and want to come down and stay a while. So I urge this council to consider the immense potential of this project and seize this opportunity to make a lasting, positive impact on downtown for future generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, San Bruno City Council and Mayor. It won't take very much time here at all. I stand here to support this project. We've been talking about downtown for decades, and I really think that your approval tonight on this project will help to move our downtown forward. It may be the first major step that we take, but we've got to take one. And looking at the cost, I don't really question the cost. It's time to just do something with that space. So I ask for a unanimous approval of this project tonight in support of our downtown businesses and the people who frequent San Mateo Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Council and city employees. Again, I'm here because I am new to San Bruno, and I just want to share with you kind of what my experience has been. I live literally on the border of South City and San Bruno. I live next to a grove of trees, and you take a couple of steps and you're in San Bruno, but I don't live here. And in 2020, when George Floyd was killed, I felt, and we were all locked down in our home, I felt a pull. I felt some kind of pull to get involved in my community, to be I learned that there's something bigger than me, and I'm in our little bubble that we all live in every day. And I thought that I would get involved in South City. That didn't happen. I ended up coming to San Bruno and opening a business here. I took a cafe that had been here since 1996 and had been ignored and pretty sad. Then I sat there for a month before I bought the place. And what I saw were the residents of San Bruno that were looking for community. They were looking for a place to hang out. And they would keep coming, even though it wasn't the nicest place and it wasn't necessarily the best service, but they were seeking something. And so what I did was I took a little place in the middle of downtown and I made it really pretty. And I've seen a lot of you in my, in my space. I'm so happy that a lot of you are, frequent downtown. Some of you don't, unfortunately. I am happy to host the Coffee with the Cops, so we're engaging now more with the community, tying the residents of San Bruno with the local government. And again, all I hear from the 70 people that come to my cafe every day is how the downtown needs a facelift. It's such a special community, and nothing bad for my South City folks, because that's where I live, but San Bruno is really special. It is the city with a heart. The community is very open. I was welcomed by the Traxlers and other business owners when I came to the block. Many of you showed up when I opened the first day, and you continue to show up in support of our local businesses. My neighbors, Basan came and brought me candy, and everybody was very welcoming. So I have never felt community like I have felt in San Bruno. But at the same time, as a business owner, as a Latino woman, oh my God, I just said, what is happening to this downtown? It has so much potential. And so I'm here to just beg for you to, give the residents what they so rightfully deserve. It's been overdue, and it's going to benefit everybody, whether you're on this side or that side. Everybody wants a more beautiful and enjoyable downtown. So I really hope that you consider to pass this motion, especially since the foundation is already paying for half of it. So it's not like the city's up for the full buck. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speakers are Randy Torrijos, Matt Jones, and Luis V.
Good evening, Mayor Medina, honorable city council members, city officials, and city staff. Randy Torrijos, I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Dave Pine from the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Pine asked me to come tonight to express his support for the Centennial Plaza Improvements Project, and also after his conversations with Council Member Medina is prepared to propose a Measure K district discretionary grant for full board approval in the amount of $150,000. I've had the pleasure of working with city staff on some other Measure K proposals, including the one mentioned by Mayor Medina for Posey Park, as well as some homeless outreach programs with the police department. So I know the city staff is well prepared to assist in creating that proposal. I look forward to working with them if that should come to pass. So again, just expressing Supervisor Pine's support for this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Mr. Jones.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to speak in favor of this project. I think downtown has needed a centerpiece for some time, and this project is a long time coming. I think it just feels a little bit sometimes with these projects that it feels like Lucy with the football, where we had the train station grade separation project, and you look at that site now, and it just needs a lot of work. And I know you guys are focused on wanting to make those improvements, but I mean, it floods every year. It's been like 10 years. And it's things like that just makes me wonder, I think the contract bid selection is so important, and making sure that the implementation is done right. And so with that, I wanted to ask some questions about, I received some questions from the community myself about, and since I'm a planner, I do a lot of CEQA work, about site remediation, if there's any need for remediation on the site, if it's already been done. So just ask a question to staff, I guess, and council. Competitive bid process. When I worked for the city, I think there was a 3-bid minimum. I don't know if it was 3 qualified bids or just 3 total, but I think I saw that there were 2. So I just wanted to ask about if that policy is still in place, and also, does the city automatically go with the lowest bid every time? Because it's such a small, kind of negligible difference between the 2. I'm wondering if maybe reputation could be a consideration if one of them has a better reputation with projects of this scope in other cities. And so those were my comments, but just thank you for considering this project.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
I'm thrilled to hear that the council is moving forward with the Centennial Plaza. It's going to bring a lot of more foot traffic to the city, and it's great for us. Furthermore, an improvement, there will be a visible step that will signal to the city that the council is finally acting on their promises to improve downtown. To my knowledge, the area has been in the possession of the city for well over a decade and has been debated time and time again. Despite the stagnant progress of the past, I am pleased to see that finally the council is moving together to create a place that the city can visibly see benefits us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
I have no other speaker cards.
Thank you. Oops. Okay, so bringing it back to council, there were some couple questions. One was on the contract bid site remediation, thank you. Lowest bid process, because do we always have to accept it? Is not the case. I know there's 2 sides on that. It's just when you do and you don't, but if you could maybe, if staff could address those quickly, please. I'll switch mics.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and members of council. Matt Lee, Public Works Director. Good to see you guys. I'll be squatting here explaining the public bid process. So I think what the speaker originally was inquiring about is for any work under $60,000, as is required by the Public Works Contract Code. Per the Public Works Contract Code, if there's any dollar amount for a project over $250,000, it has to be publicly bidded. So you are not actually actively going out and seeking 3 quotes. You're actually making it a fair bid process. And because of the Public Works Contract Code, we have to take the lowest bidder. It's a design bid process, design bid build process. And I know that it's not common in the private sector for that to happen. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions with how government actually performs construction work, but we're heavily regulated by the California Public Works Contract Code.
Thank you. And that was about the remediation.
So the remediation portion of the...
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted a follow-up question. I wanted to clarify, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, for the squatting, I apologize for that too, but so it's the qualified bid, it's not just the lowest bid. I didn't hear there is a procedure to go through each bid to make sure that they are qualified to do the work, and there have been contractors who put their bids in that we have determined are not qualified or that the bid was incomplete. And so those bids can be rejected. So I just wanted to clarify, it's not just the lowest bid, it's the lowest qualified bid.
Correct. So I could be here all night to talk about the Public Works Contract Code. It's really exciting to me, but I'm not sure if it's exciting to everybody else. But you are correct. We are looking for the lowest responsible and responsive bidders, and there's a clear definition, legal definition for what those are. And I misspoke earlier when I said $250,000 was the limit. It's actually $200,000.
And then I think that answered the questions that I wrote down real quick. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
So the site remediation would be
Director
on the
Leith,
contractor that's selected, and if it exceeded the dollar amount that was in the bid, then we would have to look at the contingency that would be associated with the project.
Thank you. And Randy, thank you for being here, because I know that makes a long day into your evening. And thank you to council member. And I do want to acknowledge Supervisor Pine for like the Posey. Life moves so that we can have an extra person to go out and try to assist folks and find permanent housing. I want to thank Supervisor Pine also for over the Lara Field with the grandstands and improvements of that sort as well. I know there's another supervisor that maybe thought there were some funds, but they only get so many discretionary funds within a period of time, and they didn't have those means available at this time. But thank the supervisor for, thank him for you being here so you can go in late tomorrow. And then thank him also just for all the contributions. Okay, I don't know that I missed any other questions. No, from the audience? Did I think we got them all? Okay, good. All right, so let's, now we'll bring it back to council. Councilman Medina.
Yes. The question about the construction project management, does our current on-call construction management consultants have the experience for these specific projects? It could be quite different, or it could be, it depends on who you get from the consultant, of the actual project manager, and making sure that that person does have the experience to manage a project like this.
Sure, I can answer that. Thank you, Councilmember Medina. We do have a qualified list, and on that list, we have approximately 6 qualified project management firms that are able to take on this project. We would likely put the scope of work out to them, have them bring back a proposal, and then we would do a interview for each of the candidates that we want to possibly bring forward for project management on this project.
Excellent, thank you.
Other questions at this time? And we've done.
Chair?
Yes. And I think we're done with questions at this time. So let's we'll roll into questions. If comments, if there are but questions,
Oh,
go
I
ahead,
have
Councilmember
questions.
Salazar.
Yeah. All right, so my first question is regarding specifically the Measure K funds that we received for the Posey Plaza and the progress on that project, and how that may or may not conflict with work we need to do on this Centennial project should we take it on.
Sure. So I can give you a brief update, Councilmember Salazar, on where we're at with that project. Right now, we are doing some leak detection work on that, and we're working with the contractor who originally built the project, and then also a leak detection company. And we feel that we have it identified. However, they did go out there and work on that a little bit more today. They're going to be back out there again tomorrow to do some more testing on that. We're basically now filling it up from the bottom up to identify exactly if that's the spot that we think it's at. If it is, we already have an idea of how we can rectify that issue, and then we would go into the next step of the project, which would be to resurface the entire fountain and reactivate the fountain. In addition to that, the grant application called for additional landscaping out there, some storage lockers for bicycles out on site, some additional seating and benches. So we're prepared to do that. That project can be accomplished with city staff There's not a need to bring on a full-on project management team or construction company to bring that to fruition. We can handle that in-house. This is a more complex project that you have before you tonight, which would require that project management. I'm fairly confident that we can have the Posey project well underway probably by midsummer, and hopefully marry these two to be completed at approximately the same time.
Okay. So you don't anticipate any conflicts?
I don't anticipate any conflicts, no.
And given what you know today, you don't anticipate any shortfall in the funding for that project?
For the Posey project, I do not see any potential reason that we would shortfall that project. The project is quite straightforward, and we're already working on plans to execute that project.
Okay, thank you. And more broadly, and I don't know if we can how much detail we have, but and how much detail we can get into this next question. But given all of the parks that we included, and I asked this question during the last item, what impact would this have on the remaining park that is part of that group of projects, and specifically around the funding? And it sounds like we are, we're using the park funds that are available for this.
So if I can, I'll go ahead and take that, Travis. And City Attorney, please nudge me if I tread in the wrong direction. So we have three projects, right, that are in the vicinity, and basically Posey is fully funded, and if we can execute and get that project done, we shouldn't have any funding conflicts. This question's before you for Centennial, and the final park, Florida Park, that project, the final design, the 100% design is end of March, so we'll have a better sense of what we think that project's going to cost. Right now, we have about, I think, $2 million set aside for construction for that project. My gut tells me that's probably not enough. It's just based upon our estimates and based upon the bidding environment today. We're probably going to need more money for that project. We have not value engineered Florida Park yet, to my knowledge, with regards to pieces of that project that the council may be interested in pulling back on to shift the investment appropriately. So, those are the three projects, and again, Florida's not in front of us yet, so we don't really have a strong sense of what that's going to be. But my sense is the $2 million the council set aside for that just may not be sufficient. So, but again, we don't have the final designs yet. I want to be clear about that.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, it's a concern to me because that project predates this one by a lot, and there was a commitment made to that community as well that we would complete that project. And I've heard some people say that what's there now is good enough, but it's not what was promised, and I would hate to see that one just fall off the plate. And they're all good projects. I would love to see them all move forward, but I mean, funding has always been an issue for us, so that remains a concern. I also had a question about the community facilities impact fee. Is that what we quoted as we would be pulling funds from? And is that part of our overall development impact fee structure? And are those funds in jeopardy of being taken away if the state decides that we're not going to be allowed to do what we've been doing?
Hi, Darcy Smith, Assistant City Manager. And just to confirm, the fund balance in the community facilities impact fee, which is set aside for parks, a little bit for libraries, it was $8.9 million. And then we've had expenditures committed but not fully expended of about $2.1 million. Hence the fund balance of about $6.7 million at the end of last fiscal year. That was in your annual impact fee mitigation report. There is a U.S. Supreme Court case, which you might be recollecting from the retreat that we briefed you on. Unknown how that would affect existing payments of impact fees, but the bulk of the funds in our current fund balance were paid by the YouTube project, which has a development agreement, and essentially in that agreement, they largely lock in the fees and sort of waive their rights to claw it back with legal challenges. And the other big project payment was from the project under construction, El Camino Real 732 El Camino Real. That project, as you know, is well coming out of the ground. So it would be odd for a project to claw back the money. So I'd say relatively safe. What is at risk is for future money. That's unknown for future projects.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying that. My next question is around, so if we are committed to spending this money, could there be alternative projects that would reap more benefit downtown? I mean, for $1 million, is there anything that could be programmed downtown that might have more of an impact and actually help more of the businesses?
So if I can, so again, a project we just touched on it during the council's goal-setting conversation just previously. We talked about, again, I'm going to use the lazy term, the beautification of the downtown, how the foundation has stepped up to want to assist us with that investment. And to my knowledge, we're not looking to pull any city funds to pay for that investment. So, you know, the next $1 million spent somewhere else in the downtown, it's hard for me to sit here and tell you there would be a better investment of $1 million. I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound very cynical what I'm about to say, and so I'm going to catch myself. Believe it or not, $1 million is not a lot of money. Right. And we all know that nowadays. That's a sad statement, but it's not. It doesn't buy you a lot anymore, as we know. And so I'm not quite sure if there's a better bang for that $1 million expenditure differently in the downtown. I can't think of something off the top of my head. I don't know if Travis or if anyone else has an idea. So, you know, Vice Mayor Salazar, I think that's a great question, and it's that one about, you know, where else could we spend this money? Are there other parks that could benefit from that? Sure. We have a lot of parks that need investment, but this is the one in front of you right now that's ready to go. So.
Okay. All right. And really, that question was just, I'm trying to get to what is the really best use of money that we could do. And if, I mean, this project has already been through design, and it's been vetted, and it's pretty much ready to go. So, yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to go back to zero, but you know, I know that we've had a lot of discussions on a lot of different projects. We've had a lot of different efforts over the years. We've done facade improvement programs. We've done additional street cleaning, all sorts of things that we hoped would incrementally help. But all right, so maybe this plaza combined with whatever we can do with the greening might have some serious impacts. You know, I remember having conversations about doing something with that area going back years and years before it ever came to the council for a real discussion. And I always thought there was an opportunity to do something there. And my disappointment so far through the process has been that we started off with a concept of basically giving access to the area. And I think the initial project funding was like $80,000. And then by the time we came back to another meeting, it was $150,000. And I believe in that same meeting or in that same month, it jumped up to $250,000. And we had a park concept there that we thought we could build. And before it even came back to us, it was up to $800,000. And now we're over $1 million. And yeah, and I get $1 million goes pretty quick right now. But when it comes to inspiring confidence in the people that give us their money to spend on these projects, I think it's lacking that we, I mean, if that was never the intent to do it, we never should have advertised it that way. And if it was more realistic to say this is likely going to be $1 million project, I would have preferred that we started the conversation that way. So just a comment for future projects. Let's be realistic up front so that there aren't any disappointments later on. That's it for me.
Yeah, so a couple questions. On the diagram, we have, and I know it's a rendering, but it's just the vegetation looks ominous on it, right? A few things. One, the bio as well. My understanding is, one, and just correct me, is that we require developers to do it. So when they have development within our community, it is something that they have to do. We don't have to do it. But I think it would be very odd for us here as a council to say, well, you have to do it, but we don't. So we've got to all be on the same page and lead by example, because it's costly and it takes up a lot of space, candidly. The lighting, when it came last to council, there was an additional $13,000+, and it was for lighting that, one of the reasons I did vote for it was to finish this concept was it was inadequate. It was not up to par and would not be okay. That was one concept. And so with this, is the lighting going to be to standard and vegetation so that it's lit, it's easy access to view from a patrol vehicle or somebody looking for somebody to pick them up or what have you? So I just was curious on those questions, please.
Sure. So there's two different types of lighting. The first one is the security lighting and the park lighting that was what you were mentioning. The second part of it is the bid alternate, which is the festoon lighting, and that's the decorative lighting that goes over the top that you see in a lot of like bistro areas and outdoor spaces where there's some nighttime entertainment or use. So those are the two different types of lighting that are there that are sufficient to light that park.
Okay, and then I'm going to assume I'm right on the other one. And then finally, it doesn't quantify what has to be done there, but even in our housing element, there is that something should be being done there, which again, if we want to have it all approved, we need to do something, right? And so that's another element. I just wanted to clarify those questions, that those are correct. Okay, those are my questions on the presentation, and so with that, we'll come back to colleagues for comments. Tom? Sure. Very patient, thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much, staff, for getting this important project to this point. Again, people aren't sitting on the edge of their seats seeing how I feel about this project. Everybody knows that I am enthusiastically for it. The activation of this space is long overdue and will bring huge benefits to our downtown. Just in the immediate area, being able to hold events. One of the slides that were shown that showed our tree lighting event, which was extremely well intended, shows everybody getting pushed into the street because there's nowhere to stand, and as was mentioned earlier, nowhere to sit. So that's really simple. But if you think about the types of events that we can do there, we have lots of people asking us, can we try again to do a farmers market? And we know that there's not a lot of appetite from the business owners to close the street. And especially on a regular basis, as you would with a recurring farmers market, and also, we would be starting again, so we would start small, and we would be able to hold it in this plaza, and then if it grows, as we would want it to, we have the city lot right behind it that we could extend to have more booths. So there's so much potential here for what we can do with this space. For our downtown. When we had our last meeting when we added the additional funding to add the study for the bioswale and for the security lighting, and so we had an amount in our heads for what we thought it was going to be. We went out for bid. I was just as disappointed as the rest of my colleagues that those bids came in higher. It's unfortunately more and more common these days, as we've been talking about. But the one thing that I would ask my colleagues to do when considering this project is to consider it on its merits and consider whether that a yes or no vote is whether or not this is a good project for our downtown. Because when you think about the cost is higher than we wanted it to be, but it will never, ever be cheaper than it is today. So if we push it off for a year, it's going to cost more than this. If we push it off for 2 years, it'll cost even more than that. So I am enthusiastically in support of this plan, and hope we can pass it tonight.
Other comments from colleagues? Seeing none?
No, it just seems like I was just getting one last minute, unless
No, go there.
I was going to give Councilmember Alvarez an opportunity. She had her.
Councilor Alvarez.
Thank you, Councilmember Martin Medina. I echo Councilmember Tom Hamilton. The longer we wait, it's probably going to be more expensive. With that said, I know in our previous meeting we have talked about adding streetlights via solar, and I wanted to know if we're adding and updating some of the streetlights, would that be incorporated in between those two? Because we need more lightings in the street light in the downtown area. So I want to know if that will be incorporated in this design.
No, we're not adding any streetlights to the project itself. Currently, the scope is as it's defined and proposed in the staff report.
Okay, Councilman Medina, now you're up.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Give me just 1 second. My page just froze. Sorry. All right. Got a lot of notes, so please bear with me for a second here. Because I first wanted to thank everyone who's here. Our residents, our business owners. I know this has been something that a lot of our community has wanted for a very long time. I can tell you when I worked here, became a father, was hoping at some point my son, who's now 11, would have been an opportunity to partake in one of the parks, one of the new parks, and definitely here at Centennial Plaza. As mentioned by our speakers tonight, there have been various public polls that, in my view, have resoundingly supported investing in our downtown to create a community space that we all can really be proud of. When I first came working in San Bruno, the second project I worked on was in the downtown. And it was pretty much cutting all the trees down, putting trees in pots, and it really hasn't changed since then. San Bruno has for a long time struggled with revenues as we try to figure out what can we do with what we have. Just like in all our households, you do what you could afford, you try to put things away, set up to how maybe one day you can do that addition. Maybe one day you could remodel a bathroom. Same thing here in the city. We've struggled for years of having the revenues. And the councils, this council and the councils before us, we put some things in place. And one of the biggest things that we did was putting in development impact fees. It didn't exist. Developers could come into San Bruno, build something, and say, hey, you guys like it? It's great, right? Well, this previous councils put in where there's fees. And so it's great to hear that I didn't get this last update. So there's $6.8 million currently in our community fees from the impact fees, right? So like everyone else up here, construction costs go up. We all know that, right? Like every other thing that goes up. In 2021, from the California Construction Cost Index, it went up 13.4% for construction costs. In 2022, 9.3%. In 2023, another 9.4%. It's going to keep on going up. We have to face that reality, and we have to think, what can we do with the money that we have that best serve the interests of our community? And in our community, we've had at least 2 polls that indicated vast support for improving our downtown. One conducted by the San Bruno Community Foundation, who turned into providing us a grant of $500,000. Because there's no denying that our residents want a nicer downtown. Additionally, the city did another poll in this last year in October, which indicated, again, thank you, Sedana. It was the number four thing that our community is concerned about. The crime, the homelessness, the streets, improving our downtown. Now, we could remember, just based on the last 2 times that we had Christmas tree lighting downtown, just how amazing it was for those nights. It just got better. This last year, I've never seen downtown with as many families walking around after dark at that point in my whole 23 years here in San Bruno. Never seen it. And it's just that our community is in need of a place like that. Yeah, we're gonna have a great city park, aquatic center, but for everyone else that maybe isn't as interested in going to the pool, that just wants to be able to meet a friend and have a place to sit outside in a nice setting in our downtown, right? It's clear this is what's needed. So we have $6.8 million in our community fund. Before receiving, and thank you, Randy and Dave Pine for $150,000. Before that contribution, this was, for doing this project, was just 9% of that $6.8 million. With getting that additional money, now it's just 6%. So we have 94% of that money to do the other things that we want to talk about. Right now, if we approve this project, we will have $6.4 million still in that fund. There's a lot that we can do. We just have to decide and move on it, because it'll continue getting more and more expensive. So I know the majority of this council at one time in their election campaign have said, I want to see a nicer downtown. Of course, because we talk to people and that's what people want. Well, here's the opportunity. The biggest thing that we can do, since what? Maybe improving the sewer, but who's interested in the sewer in our downtown, honestly? People want this place. I'm in full support of it. I really look forward to one day breaking ground and having everyone in an incredible space that has a stage, that we can have some music, that we can have maybe a farmer's market, anything that our community decides that's appropriate for that space, we can have. Because right now, I think is there a fine to go in there? It's illegal to go in there with
There's a penal code that's listed on the sign that tells you to keep out.
Yeah, we got to keep out of the plaza, right? So those are my comments. I enthusiastically support this. This is exactly what we need. And I believe this. We should be leaving San Bruno in a better place. And this is the biggest step we can do for our downtown. So, thank you.
Councilmember Hamilton.
So I should have been first of all, thank you very much for those comments, Marty. And I should have been as disciplined as you and write down your notes, because I forgot 2 key things. I did forget to, I was negligent in not thanking Supervisor Pine for, and sending you, Randy, thank you for your time tonight, to swoop in at the last second with an offer to help us with this project. And we understand that proposal for $150,000 needs to go before the full board, and we very much thank Supervisor Pine for stepping up and recognizing the value of this project. The other thing that I neglected to include in my comments was that there was mention earlier tonight of the streetscape plan. This project is outlined in the streetscape plan, and this would represent the first meaningful step on executing on that plan. Something that's been sitting on the shelf since we enacted it. There's been all kinds of reasons why we couldn't move forward with it, but it's time to take action. And the design, especially at the sidewalk side of this park, is going to inform future decisions for how we extend that beautification of the hardscape through the rest of our downtown. So, thank you.
And for me, just a little history of that. That was, for those that may remember, it was the old Wells Fargo Bank. And the city bought it way, way, way back. I don't even remember the year, to be candid with you. And the rationale by then, that city council, was they wanted to have skin in the game and be on San Mateo Avenue. And then they had San Bruno Cable utilize it, today's CityNet Services, and it was utilized for other events and activities within San Mateo Avenue. And then it was found it was not seismically safe. Kind of goes to figure with the building of that, that age. So it was demolished. So when we talk about safety, one of the reasons, to my knowledge, is you can't go in is because it's not been leveled. It's not been put to a condition that allows that access and ability to go through that area. It was staff way back then that said, because it used to be a fence with weeds and trash. That's what that lot looked like before. And so staff was given the task to go do something temporary, do it in-house, do it with what we have to minimize costs, because if it's temporary, why would you paint your whole house if, in essence, there's going to do a portion of it? And so it was not to waste money or go out for a consultant, and they didn't. And so they produced what you're seeing today. That was temporary. It's been beyond temporary to anybody's means and thoughts. I know that comment was made that it is $1 million. That was before tonight's announcement with Randy. So the foundation is $500,000. There's still $1 million cost that the city needs to come from the situation. And so it was the skin in the game, which we still have. And Town Square, I kind of liking that word better than Centennial Plaza, honestly, but that's just something that was very catchy. That's how that came to, as you know, there's a time capsule. I won't be around to see it. I think it's 2064 or something it'll open. But that's how that kind of evolved into itself, and it would be moved. Things have changed, and it isn't as bustling as it was in the 70s when I got my hair cut from Archie, when I got my shoes down there, when Pet World got my goldfish, Rhodes Hardware. We can go down memory lane. It has evolved because the mall opened, where the Treetop Apartments were. There used to be a complex, a whole thing. Up at where Lenardi's is, there used to be a whole complex. And all that started to dwindle because of other elements and the mall that opened up. So it really did change that and people's purchasing habits. But we all do know that costs are going to go up. And when I thought it was going to be done a couple years ago, or that's how it was said, hey, wait for a plaque for Harry Costa because, it'll be done soon enough. Well, we're still not done. And so, I think that it is, time for temporary to go away. Is the price tag higher than I wanted to see? Oh, yeah. Is there a lot of amenities in it? No. Do I figure and feel it's a start and we can still do other things as time progresses? And I've said if you go to Laurel in San Carlos and what they've done, to whether it's a planter, whether it's a bench, whether it's a stone, whether it's this, there is folks that want to give and contribute to various things. And why wouldn't we want them to if they choose to? If Gail Costa wants to do something in remembrance of her late husband, who used to be Mr. Mayor of San Mateo Avenue, let her. Let's allow people to be a part of that park. I had a very nice email last night that I received. Thank you. And I liked the tone and the whole way that it was said. And then I happened to be down looking at Centennial Plaza, talking, thinking, and I got a tap on the shoulder from Mr. Seymour, who was walking by doing some business and wanted to, in case he didn't see me tonight, wanted to give thoughts. I think that everybody is looking for something, and I think it's time for that something to come to fruition. And we can begin with this, and we can always approve and improve later on. So with that, comments are concluded. And let me just double check. Any final comments? Seeing and hearing none.
I will happily introduce a resolution if you can't. If
yeah.
I will. I happily introduce the resolution of item 7B for Centennial Plaza as read by the city clerk.
Happy to second.
Motion. A lot of seconds, okay, but we'll do, I heard Hamilton, Medina, motion second. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, staff, and thank you. As the city manager said, oh, and I said no clapping, but we'll let it go. But as the city manager said, I think this is why we talked about the 5 items, so you can start to show progress. You can start to show the check, and I think that's more attainable in our lives and in your businesses. You got to do with what you can, but you can't do it all, so let's be realistic, and I think this is a start. So thank you to staff. With that, we're going to move on to item 8. Nobody else has to stay. You're welcome to go home. And to those of you who stayed, thank you, and happy Valentine's Day tomorrow. Council committee report outs. Colleagues. Council comments, colleagues. Councilmember Hamilton.
So just real fast as people are going out, I clap for you. The people in this room fought very, very hard for that last item, and I applaud you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. You threw me. Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, this is a baseball announcement, right? So San Bruno baseball and softball are beginning. Go down to the parks, watch these kids practice, right? Show some support. They would be amazed to hear just a few positive comments, right? Hey, good try, good catch. Just that. It's really exciting. San Bruno baseball is really amazing. Softball is too. I have more experience with the baseball, so I just wanted to make sure to let everyone know it's back. Be careful driving around the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'll make it quick. Under our train station, the grade separation at San Bruno Avenue, the 3 new pumps have been installed to hopefully remedy that. I've been on it. It was supposed to be the end of the month. I want to thank Matt Lee, who's kept up to date on this, and they've been in collaboration, and I went down there personally because it, again, is a problem since the day it opened. Also want to mention, some of us were at the Wings ribbon cutting. That was at Rollingwood Elementary, and it was a great experience, and to see them a part of that. And finally, there's an EPX, which a launch event was held last Friday. It started Monday, the bus service that goes from San Francisco, San Bruno, BART all the way to East Palo Alto and in between, and that's to hopefully connect everybody to the greater good of trying to get people from start to finish. And with that, seeing and hearing nothing else, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting to the next regular city council meeting, which will be held on February 27th, 2024, right here at 7 o'clock. Everybody have a good night. Thank you to staff. Thank you to the audience that was here. And everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. Meeting adjourned.